A Democratic Women's Working Group held a press conference to speak out against a Department of Education official's remarks regarding sexual assaults on college campuses. Let's watch.
Between Navy Yard and Capitol Hill, like not all the way up the waterfront. Navy Yard. Yeah, I don't know that we can fully claim.
Thank you, everyone, for being here to join us to talk about Title IX protections for students across our country. Leader Pelosi, thank you for being here. You have been a tireless advocate on this issue throughout your career. And Representative Frankel, thank you for your leadership on the Democratic Women's Working Group. You've led this group to confront tough and very important issues that we've been facing here. And I certainly want to thank all of my colleagues as well. Under Title IX law, schools are legally required to remedy hostile educational environments. After years of reports from students that their schools were not responding appropriately to cases of sexual assault, the department made a push in the last few years to enforce this critical law. In recent days, we've been shocked by comments from the Department of Education that seem to downplay the trauma of sexual assault and undo the progress we've made. Comments like this are disqualifying for any public official, but it's appalling to hear this sort of victim blaming come from the person charged with protecting our students from sexual assault. We need a highly competent system led by highly competent people, not officials who blame victims. I understand that there has been an apology. An apology will certainly be enough if the comments weren't somehow indicative of the actions that we have already seen from the Department of Education. Over the last few months, the department hasn't missed an opportunity to diminish the power of its awful Office of Civil Rights. The budget has been slashed, guidances have been rescinded, crucial problems are being deprioritized and diminished. I remember when I was in the California State Legislature and the Italian Supreme Court overturned a rape conviction. They felt that because the victim was wearing tight jeans, that she must have consented. In support, we all came together in a bipartisan way to wear jeans to the California State House in solidarity of this pronouncement by the court. I'm proud to say that this tradition still continues today in a number of states and countries. We came together because victim blaming has no place in any just society. And I'm disappointed that this is a conversation that we're still having. This is about ensuring students have a safe environment on campus. It is in no way an attempt to take away the due process of students. Universities must adhere to the rule of law like everyone else. We will not turn back the clock. And I now want to introduce Leader Pelosi and the rest of my colleagues.
Thank you, Congresswoman Davis, for your leadership on this issue, both as a member of the Armed Services Committee and your working for respect for women in the military, and as a member of the Education and Workforce Committee, whose jurisdiction the Education Department Office of Civil Rights falls. I'm honored to be here, as you indicated, with the chair of the, it's the co-chair of the bipartisan Women's Task Force, but also with the vice chair, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence from Michigan. Also pleased to be here with Congresswoman Bonamici, on member of the Education and Workforce Committee as well. A newest member, Nanette Barragan from Los Angeles, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, whom you all know from New York, working so hard for a women's museum, Congresswoman Judy Chu of California, the chair of our Asian Pacific Islander Caucus and Congressional, the a ranking member, former chair of the Rules Committee, Congresswoman Louise Slaughter, a real fighter for women's rights, Jackie Spear, who brought us together right before the break to condemn what President Trump said about Mika. It was outrageous. So right before we leave, we have a press conference. As we come back, we have a press conference. I hope we're not doing this every week. And again, thank you, Susan Davis. But the point is, and I mentioned all of my colleagues who are here, I don't know if they're all going to speak, but it's all about respect. As a mother of 4 daughters, 2 granddaughters, I have many grandsons and a son, but it's amazing to me to see the lack of respect that some of these people have for women and for girls. 6 years ago, the Obama administration said enough is enough. And Joe Biden continues to be a great champion in respecting women, and saying it's not your fault. I mean, we want the truth to come out. What is it, over 95% of the time? I'm sure you will address that. The truth is that it's not their fault. Together, Biden, they expanded Title IX protections and enforcement. They gave survivors hope and courage to come forward. But now the Trump administration is dismantling that progress, attacking Title IX protections, which include transgender students, cutting funding and staff for the Office of Civil Rights. This is inequality, it is injustice. So my comments are about respect for women and strengthening of the Office of Civil Rights of the Education Department, not weakening it. Last month marked the 45th anniversary of Title IX. The stories of how hard it was to pass at the time are legendary. Here I won't go into them. However, there has always been this nipping away. There's some in Congress who just would like to get rid of it. Sad truth is that women still face inequity, discrimination, and harassment. Every woman has a right to feel safe on campus. To the survivors and advocates here that we have been meeting with today, we believe you. We will never stop fighting until we wipe out the scourge of sexual assault wherever it may ever occur. Campus sexual assault is an epidemic in America. It's important to note it is unacceptable that 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted on campus. So thank you, my colleagues, for bringing us together to point out the outrageous statement of Candace Jackson. An outrageous statement. I know there's an apology, but that doesn't erase what is inside that spewed forth yesterday. I'm pleased now to yield to the distinguished chair of the Women's Task Force, Democratic Women's Task Force, co-chair of the bipartisan Representative Frankel of Florida.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader Pelosi, Susan Davis, and all of my colleagues here who are awesome in their own right, great leaders at home and in our Congress. So let me just start by saying that yesterday's comments by Candace Jackson are an outrage, excusing violent behavior. But as troubling, or even more troubling, is they reflect a dangerous attitude at the Department of Education towards victims of sexual assault. College should be a place to expand your mind, not fear for your safety. Students should be chasing dreams, not running from sexual predators. And yet today, Secretary Betsy DeVos is meeting with and giving a platform to groups who discount victims and protect accused rapists. It's unbelievable. Meanwhile, her Department of Education has issued guidance to weaken Title IX protections, and the Trump budget proposes to cut staff that enforce Title IX. That's truly horrific. Secretary DeVos, I'm going to repeat something that victims wrote you yesterday, which is, who are you serving? You're abandoning these young women, victims of unspeakable acts forced upon them, like Andrea Pino, who you may have read about, from my home state of Florida, attending a UNC. She was a high school valedictorian, first of her family to attend college, majoring in English, involved in campus life and clubs, and had the highest hopes when she entered college. Her freshman year turned into a nightmare. She was drugged and raped at a frat party, and a year later she relived this terror, assaulted again, violently attacked and raped in a bathroom at a party. She woke up in a pool of blood, marks, and blisters on her body. And she reported these assaults and the administrators did nothing. One went as far to say her class performance was deteriorating because she was just lazy. She looked for help. She couldn't find support. The rapists were allowed to stay in school if they just wrote an apology letter. So she took action and filed a federal complaint. And her bravery and activism led to the department cracking down on colleges that don't protect students from sexual assault, as Leader Pelosi just referenced. So for Andrea and all the young victims on campus, we must continue to defend and enforce Title IX, holding predators accountable and giving victims the resources that they deserve. And I now yield to my co-chair on the Democratic Working Women's Group, Brenda Lawrence.
I want to thank our leader, Nancy Pelosi, Susan Davis, and the chair of our working group, Lois Frankel, and my colleagues who stand here today. In the movement across the country, the term stay woke comes up often, and it is about staying aware of what's going on. And these women, we have come together as members of Congress to say that we will not tolerate any sign of disrespect and protection of women. When it comes to accusation of sexual violence and a serious and thorough investigation should never be up for debate. I fully support the protections provided by Title IX. Our students need, they shouldn't want, they need our government to be supportive of a safe education environment and a protection process to report sexual violence, whether it's men or women. The remarks by Candace Jackson were far from just being ill-advised. Leadership, those of us who stand up and say that we're going to take on the responsibilities of government positions, should never display bias or preconceived notion. It is dangerous. When a woman stands up or a man stands up to make an allegation of discrimination, of being sexually assaulted, how dare you make a preconceived notion that 90% of those who come are telling a lie or they're not being truthful. In this country, for the women across this country, so many who are first generation going to college, as the example that was laid out by Lois Frankel, of women who are entering into that next phase of the American dream, that's a college education. How dare you assume, and then on top of that, make the assumption that it's not true. Every case should be investigated. In every case, we have the responsibility to get the facts. As the Secretary of Education, I want to say to Susan DeVos, as the Secretary, Betsy DeVos. Who's Susan? As the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, this is what I expect of you. I want you to be open-minded as you meet with constituents today. Listen and talk to groups, those who can help advise you on best practices. But I want to be very clear. I expect you, as our Secretary of Education, to protect our students against sexual violence, to support a safe environment for our students. And I expect you, through investigation of all accusation, treat these cases as serious and one of your highest responsibilities. I want you to know that as we stand here as women, with that ultimate responsibility, we're often asked, what keeps you awake at night? Injustice, ignorance, and silence keeps me awake at night. And we're standing here today saying that will not be part of the women of this Congress. And I am so proud to now bring another colleague, a woman who has just had a history of being a leader, a voice, and a person who understands that we have a responsibility, and that's Representative Spears, please.
Thank you, Representative Lawrence. Thank you to our leader, Nancy Pelosi, to Susan Davis, the ranking member of Higher Ed and Workforce, to the DWWG leadership, both Lois and Brenda, and to all of us who are gathered here. There's a real simple message here. We are not going back. We are not going back to Neanderthal thinking. We are not going back to myths that are promoted by those that don't know the facts. 20% of co-eds in colleges are either sexually assaulted or an attempt of sexual assault is made upon them while they're there. 13% of LGBT members and 6% of men. As the leader said, this is an epidemic. 6 years ago, I took my daughter on college tours. Every orientation we went to, the very first question asked by parents was, how safe is this school? In orientation, when she went to college, what kind of safety measures do you have in place? Republican parents and Democratic parents want to make sure that their children are going to schools that have a good record of addressing the issue of sexual assault. Now, Candace Jackson has apologized, but let me share with you what she has said. She said that 90% of investigations fall in the category of we were both drunk, we broke up, and 6 months later, the man finds that he is being charged, and he guesses our last sleeping together was not right. Those were words that she said. Now, Catherine Lamont was the director of the Office of Civil Rights in the Obama administration. And when she was told this, she said it was patently, demonstratively untrue. And what she did say is very important to remind us. She says when she took that job, she saw jaw-dropping non-compliance by universities of Title IX as it related to sexual assault. So, the message here is we're not going back. The guidance that was provided in 2011 must stay in place, that victims must be accommodated, that universities must be held accountable, and this list of shame that some universities are fretting about, that it appears that Secretary DeVos is interested in resolving, is not going away. Every family has the right to look at that list and see whether the school that they are contemplating to send their daughter or their son is meeting the standards that we have put in place about accountability, investigations, and accommodation of the victim survivor.
Thank you very much. Suzanne. Representative Bonamici.
Thank you very much, and thank you to my colleagues here for your leadership. This is such an important issue we are talking about today. Students deserve to be safe and to feel safe when they're at school or on a college campus. And that means all students. It means victims of discrimination, it means survivors of sexual assault, and it means our LGBTQ students. And there are a lot of examples where this administration under Trump has gone backwards. This is one place where we are saying, no, we are not, as Representative Spears said, we are not going back. As a parent of a son and a daughter and as a policymaker, we are not going back. I've had many conversations with survivors of campus sexual assault. I've spoken on campuses with people who are implementing the progress under Title IX, and we are not going back. These survivors deserve to be heard. They deserve to be taken seriously. They need meaningful policies, not flippant remarks. We need to have someone in charge of civil rights at the Department of Education who actually believes in civil rights. We are not going back. And I tell you, when you talk with survivors of campus sexual assault, you know the challenges that they're up against, and the progress that we have made has been impressive. And when I see the steps that this administration has taken so far, those steps are going back. We need to work together. We need to speak out and send a message. Survivors, you will be heard. We understand there is an issue that needs to be addressed. Go talk to your campuses. Talk about the work that has been done. Campuses are becoming safer. We are not going back. So we need to send a strong message today. Yes, we want the Secretary of Education to listen to the stories of the survivors and to hear perspectives. But when it comes to civil rights and protections under Title IX, do not turn back the page on the progress that we have made. We can work together. We can come together and make this happen. We need to talk about prevention in our K-12 system. Bills like the Promoting Healthy Relationships Act. And we need to have all of the enforcement on campus under Title IX that each and every survivor across this country deserves. So we hear you, survivors.
Any questions? We had a group, but there are a few bills up today that need to be heard. Ready?
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, both of you.
Tonight on C-SPAN 3, a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing on human trafficking, a review of the recently concluded session of Australia's Parliament, policy